Steele. But we wanted to welcome you and recognize some familiar faces in the crowd. Thank you for joining us this morning. We've prepared, the team, the girls have prepared a extensive slideshow on how to fundraise. Our team loved to fundraise. It was something we found fun and creative and exciting, and a lot of people think it's awful and hard and just, anyway, we liked it, and we wanted to make our team successful by doing a lot of it. So we got the right personalities devoted to the right job, and I guess that's step one. All of the slides are going to be available on the SCRA website. So if we cover a lot of information too quickly, all the detail will be in excruciating detail. We're going to have to help us through this today. But I wanted to introduce the members of our team. Naoka is the head of the fundraising team for Girls of Steel. We were a rookie team last year and grew from 15 participants to 62 right now. So we're very blessed and pleased with that. We have Shayna Leshko, who will take us through the different forms of support, and then Campbell, who's going to cover some of the
last names. I'm just Campbell.
She's just Campbell.
Alright, so just a quick overview of what this presentation is going to contain. First off, we're just going to talk a little bit about who we are and why we're here talking to you about fundraising today. We're going to talk about some sources of support for your team, not necessarily monetary, but other forms. And also we're going to talk about the process of fundraising. It is a long and involved process, but we will take you through every single step of it. So I'm going to hand
like it or not.
So I'm going to hand it over to Shayna.
Thank you. Okay, so I am Shayna, and I'm just going to be taking you through a little bit of who we are, why we're here, and why we think we can help you. So as we have stated, we are Girls of Steel, Team 3504, and we are an all-girls robotics team, and this is unique to us. And we come from all over the Pittsburgh area, and we even have one girl from Chicago, or not Chicago, why did she Chicago? Ohio. She's from Ohio. And so last year was our rookie season, as Sukanya had said, and we sort of got through that by developing our identity, and then that helped us be successful in fundraising. So can anybody tell me who this lovely figure is? Anybody? Anybody?
Norma Ray.
Rosie the Riveter?
Yes. This is Rosie the Riveter, and she is our mascot. We have developed her. She was a female empowerment symbol in war times when the men had to go off to war and the women had to stay, and the men needed machine guns and artillery, and so the women went to factories and helped produce these things. And so that is why we use her. And she was actually developed by Westinghouse, which is a Pittsburgh company, and they're actually one of our sponsors. So we all think that's really cool. So last year we were really successful in fundraising, and we just want you guys to know that it's really not that hard. I mean, it's not terribly easy either, but we think you can do it, and we're here to help.
Did you start out at a base one that no funding was given to you whatsoever to start the program?
We all started equally at zero.
Yeah, I mean, nobody gave you a grant to get started.
Well, we're going to cover
okay.
how we went step by step.
I see JC Penney's on your shirt, that's why I asked.
And that's a grant that we applied for through the region.
Okay, so sources of support that are not necessarily monetary are parental and school support. And then we're going to get into company and foundation support, but that's sort of like the big meat of the presentation. So, parental support. This is a really huge factor for our team. Our parents are involved in everything we do. They come to all our events, and they come to basically all of our meetings. And we got them involved through various ways, but they give us transportation, they act as mentors, and they also provide us with fundraising contacts, which we will get to in a minute. One of the biggest things that they provided us with was food. And this seems silly because we're in a fundraising presentation, but this was really crucial. In our first meetings, we had potluck dinners, and so parents would bring food, and they would all come in, and they would get to talking to each other, and then they found out how much Girls of Steel meant to us, and then they were very willing to help. And this was really important because they're really, really important sources of support. All right, and then another source of support is school support, and they can provide monetary support, but we think that they're also great for other things. But we do not come from one high school. So we're coming from over 20 around the area, and so we thought this would be a good time to see how you guys use your schools to help support you. Can anybody give a shout out of what your schools do for you?
We're still trying to work that out with our school.
Okay, well, here are some ideas that we have for you. We're not very well versed in this because obviously we don't have school contacts, but.
We don't have school contact, we're with 4-H. And we
Okay.
have, and the difference again would be, it would be boys and girls. It's not a girl set program. So it would be girls and boys. The other thing, instead of using school source, right now we're using JCPenney's meeting room for our meetings. Since they're sponsoring us, they're working with us and using their meeting room. But because of 4-H, 4-H meets all over through the county in churches, in fairgrounds, and, you know, in other words, for us to get a location, that's not really a big deal because we have so many connections with buildings and places to meet, so.
So your challenges are very similar to the challenges we had, where students come from a big, large geographical area.
Not
and
really,
gather and-
yeah, not really, because people are used to driving to get to a meeting to do something. Yeah, our challenges are not that. Our challenges are going to be the actual funding source. After this year, JCPenney's really, this year they're giving us quite a bit of money. Next year and the year after they're not. So we want to start getting in the mode of that.
Great, so that's what the rest of this is going to be about. We're going to be talking about how you can get company and foundation support. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Campbell.
Okay, so I'm Campbell with no last name, and I'm going to be talking about how to get company and foundation support for your team. So we have defined the process of fundraising for you guys. We defined this process of having 4 parts. We're going to teach you how to get started. We're going to teach you how to ask, and then once you ask and they either say yes or no, when they say yes, you can get a pledge from them so that they can give you their money, and then you want to keep them happy by keeping donor relations. So the first process, the first part of this process is the getting started. You want to determine your budget, you want to identify potential sponsors, and you want to see whether you want to apply for a grant or ask for a donation. So the first thing in our one-part process is you want to set goals for your season. Goals are very good. Goals give you ambition, but they also sort of foreshadow, what you're trying to do during the season. And so once you set up those goals, like for example, if you want to travel to 2 regionals, or you want to make 2 robots so that while there's that little lag in time during the competitions, you can practice so you'll be better at the competitions. For travel, you may want to increase your budget a little there, and for robot parts, if you want to make a 2nd robot, you want to increase your part there. So you definitely want to get that money to achieve those goals. The second thing you want to do is identify potential sponsors. You want to start out with personal contacts. You can start with anyone, basically. There's no shame in this. You can ask families, you can ask, parents, teachers, colleagues at work, basically anything. And then once they give you that initial contact, you want to get the right contact. And the right contact is kind of the decision maker. They have the power to give you that money. And your initial contact probably will not be that money maker contact. And if you're struggling with getting personal contacts, what you can do is, some of our members from our team went to the library and they got this book, Pittsburgh Business 2011 Book of Lists, and it has all the companies and all the foundations in the Pittsburgh area that you can ask for donations or grants for. And they'll give you initial contact information like name, email address, and phone number.
Before you move on, the last slide you had was like a $60,000 budget.
Yes.
That's one of my problems right now, going to ask for money when I don't even know what I need. So, in other words, we just went to our board, they gave us $500, but I don't even know what to ask them, my board for, like 20,000 or 60,000. So, is that budget there in front of you is about right, or is that, was that your budget you used last year, or is this kind of a make-believe?
That was our budget last year,
Okay.
but the reason we wanted to start this slide start with team goals. There are teams that went to the national championship that built their robots out of wood. So it's really what you want to do for your students, and then put numbers to that.
Okay.
Not everyone builds a second robot. We certainly did not last year. We encountered teams that are funded by large corporations who have staffs of engineers that don't let their students get involved with the robot. They build it and let the students sort of consult. And I'm not being in judgment of whether that's right or wrong, but every team has to make its own decision what their goals, what they want to do for their first season. And particularly with rookies, we all went into this very blind. We had no idea what the costs were. We, how many minibot motors did we go through, guys? I don't know. At one point we laughed about charging the minibot team on a per motor basis. The could go up and the smoke would come out of it and it'd fly off. And we were like, ah. The fundraising people would be like, cha-ching, cha-ching, make another call, cha-ching. So it's really what you want to do. For this region, that's probably a very large number. That number scares me. I don't know how we came up with that. I think, and we didn't come up with it all at once, because I think we came up with this, and then as we kept frying minibot motors, we kept making calls and kept trying, going, oh boy, we're going to need another $1,000 over there. So it's
Okay.
more your process.
All right, thank you.
It's okay. Yeah, so contacts and going to the library, covered that. So now you want to decide if you want to go apply for a grant or ask for a donation. So grants. Grants are kind of hard to do. You basically go through, sort of follow a set of guidelines. You write an application and a program with a program description, regional impact, etc. You want to apply yourself as much as possible. Sort of in this application, you follow a bunch of rules, etc. But grants are made to give money for a specific purpose. For example, foundations give grants for education and the environment, and minorities, and etc. And so we fall under the education and also the STEM part, besides technology, engineering, mathematics. Yeah, so grants are very good, but they also are hard to do. So just between that. Where you can get grants for first is through Patricia Dupre. How many of you guys have applied for JCPenney, NASA, Heinz Endowments, etc.? Raise your hands. Okay. So those who have not, it's okay, but you should probably talk to Patricia Dupre at the end of the day, because that is some money that is easily accessible to you guys once you write a grant. And it's just, most teams have JCPenney or either NASA or somebody. Just that initial money is very good. Local foundations give grants, etc. Eden Hall, IMR, PPG, etc. Excuse me. So after grants, you can ask for donations from other companies. You want to ask for a specific amount of money, and you want to tell the company, what their money that they will give will buy for you. So, for example, you can, ask for, we really want to get sensors on our robot to make our robot better in competition. And so you can say, would you be willing to give a specific amount of money to help our robot get sensors, or etc. And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no, and NAOCA will definitely teach you how to ask for that process. And then there are other things like in-kind donations or fundraising with benefits. For example, last year, American Eagle gave us our uniforms, and then JCPenney also gets these t-shirts, just for uniforms so you can look like a team at the regionals. Materials, t-shirts, food, computers, etc. It can basically be anything, but JCPenney does a lot of having a lot of flair, so that's very good. And I'm going to ask NAOCA.
When you got your t-shirts from JCPenney,
Yes.
then I'm assuming that was at the beginning, like now, they're asking us for t-shirt size, and they're asking
That's
us your
correct.
name and
Yes.
the name.
That's it.
That's where you got the
This
shirt.
is-
Yes, this is
Now-
where you got the t-shirt.
Now, did you design, you had to hurry up and come up with that design then that you
No,
put on
JCPenney designs that nationally.
Oh,
And
so
then
your
a
logo-
wonderful box arrives with all of your shirts.
You put your
It's an
logo on the
easy-
back, but this is just
Yeah, but I mean, that's
That's
the
the
thing on the back though,
Oh,
you
yeah.
designed it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we put that on separate
Separate.
ourselves.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, so you put that on separately, because I'm thinking, how are we gonna design a logo and have it ready to go for JC?
Ask a student.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't know if JCPenney will ask that question whenever we go into
No,
that link.
ma'am, the shirts arrived, and then we tried to organize what uniform we wanted, and then we took the shirts to one of our fathers who
Printers.
was in the printing business, and then he had it done.
Okay, that's
Gladys,
nice.
as I recall, Rachel, right?
Yes.
Rachel behind you's dad is the Mexican that did
I have a
that.
question about setting up a nonprofit organization. Do you guys have your own nonprofit organization set up, or have tax exempt status?
I always
How did
thought
you
that
do
was really hard to do, and frankly, I don't really understand that. Because we are affiliated with Carnegie Mellon University, the checks are written to Carnegie Mellon University for Girls of Steel.
Okay.
And I don't, is 4-H?
4-H, we're a 501c, yeah, we're already set up as a.
So you're good. And are you with this lady
No.
on your left?
No,
I'm sorry, so let me help
I'm
you.
with Franklin Regional High School.
Yeah,
Well,
but your high
it's-
school would have
your
already
high
set
school
up.
That's what we have to argue about on Tuesday.
Mhm.
They don't want anything to do with us being a club that they have to do with any money, of course.
That
They don't want to
seems
give you any
odd.
money. is that
No,
what
no,
you're
it's not they
saying?
don't want to give us money. They're having problems with the bookkeeping part of it. So we're going to
Tell them
talk to
that you
them on
need
Tuesday.
$60,000 and that might change.
Yeah, well, that's what we're dealing with this week, so.
So you might want to also talk to Patricia Dupre today and Ryan Cahoon. I know that the
Well, my wife's
CLC
been talking to Patricia.
Oh, she has
Yeah,
been.
so, I mean, we're not sure if we have to go set up our own 401
I hope not.
organization and then file tax form at the end of the year. Somebody's gonna have to go through all that, because that's what it looks like right now. like
One
a
thing I
booster
do
club.
know though is that for any checks larger than $1,000 or larger, it can flow through
It does
first.
go to first, but they won't give it to us until we have an organization to take the money for us.
That's not my understanding actually, is that Patricia, it's called re-granting, and we had that same issue last year, where if it flows through first, then all you have to do is apply to first for the difference between what your regional cost. Like if you got a grant for $6,000 and your regional was $5,000, first will write you a check for that extra $1,000 after they covered the regional amount.
All right,
I
that's-
hope I'm
that's-
right.
All right, and then I still don't understand how we account for that and who has to show that the money came in and goes out, you know what I mean?
Well,
As
what-
far as nonprofit is concerned.
I personally didn't want to try to set up a nonprofit because that
Too much
seems
work.
to take your eye off the enjoyment of students and, I'm sorry.
But I wonder how it works at other schools. Is it going to be a school team?
Yes.
So since we don't have experience with being a team at one school, I would recommend asking somebody from Gateway.
McKeesport or
Gateway
Gateway.
or McKeesport.
They
Yeah,
have
and
the
they're
same
here, people from that.
All right,
those
thanks.
institutions.
And then with us too, keep in mind, we never saw the money, like the money from JCPenney's goes in and they subtract it. In other words, we probably will never touch the money, we'll never physically get to touch it. It will be, you know,
Well, then I'm not gonna do it if I can't.
you just keep
That's the only
writing,
reason I'm into this, is to
you
touch
just
the
keep
money.
signing, you just keep signing your name, yes, we are approved of the fact that you're paying for our registration, yes, we approve the T-shirts that you're paying for.
JCPenney is a wonderful philanthropic organization. The head of all JCPenney came and met many members of our
Oh, really?
team at the national competition. I mean, he spent 2 or 3 hours that morning. I know he had other stuff to do. But they so believe in this. And at the store level, I know you've been assigned a store.
Yeah.
Those people, they did a fundraiser where they sold white elephant items and wrote us a check for $250. They come to the events, they come to the region. That JCPenney link is very important. It was to us.
They've always been a supporter of 4-H, so this is
They're
just,
great.
yeah, they've been very supportive after school 4-H program.
Sorry to digress.
I apologize.
No, no, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to get started by talking about the second step in this process, which is the ask. And it's only one step out of the entire 12-step process, but it is probably one of the most important. So that's making an initial call and sending a letter of inquiry. And so the letter of inquiry has these 2 things associated with it, which I'll be talking about. So making the initial call. So it may seem simple, but this can be one of the hardest things to do in the fundraising process. So I remember last year, my very first fundraising meeting, I was asked to do a role play with Mr. Road over there, and I was asking for money, and it was so hard. And so I had to write down a script, and I had to practice it a couple times before I could get it right. So one main thing that you want to say is, may I speak to your manager who handles grants and donations? Because you want to make sure that you're talking to the right person who can give you the money. So it seems simple, but like I said, it can be hard. So if it works for your team, I'd recommend writing a call script that anybody on the team can use and just practicing with it. It's very helpful. And if they're not free, you can ask these things, name, email address, and physical address, so you can send snail mail, and ask if you can send a letter of inquiry. So these are 8 main things that go into a letter of inquiry. So I'm just going to go through them kind of quickly. So first off, you want to start off with an introduction of how you know the recipient. So a lot of times in fundraising, you want to have a personal contact because they'll be a lot more likely to want to fund you and be interested in your program. So if you start off by saying, oh, remember 5 years ago when you helped me with my homework, you know, something like that, anything as simple as that, that just brings back some memories and, you know, helps them understand who you are again, would be helpful. You want to tell your story and prove that first works. I'll be talking about those. Ask for a specific amount of money, specify an address where to send the check. And there's also this thing called the boilerplate. And so that's basically a couple paragraphs describing your school and your mentors and your team. So this is something that should and can be the same in every single letter that you send out. So for us, we basically just copy the same paragraphs into each letter. And for us, this is about the Field Robotics Center and Carnegie Mellon. And so also, if you're a nonprofit, you want to include this information and contact information.
And we've included, for your review today, one of our letters of inquiry. You're welcome to come and look at all the different steps and what we did.
You included that in what?
No, it's up here.
Oh, okay, I thought you meant there was a handout for it.
All right, so one important thing that goes into the letter of inquiry is telling your story. And so this is figuring out what is unique about your team and how you can convey this to potential sponsors. So these are just a couple of things that we have used in the past to differentiate ourselves from other first teams. So another thing you want to do is prove first works. So I just included a first logo here to show that it's important to make sure that you know how to appropriately convey first to people who may not know what it is. So if you need some help with that, I'd recommend going to usfirst.org and just getting some information straight off there so you know what to tell people. So I'm just going to show you a couple of statistics that we've used in the past. So I'm going to go through them kind of fast, so if you want to look at the slides later on, please feel free to. But these are just a couple of things that we've used in the past to prove first works. So high school graduation percentages nationally and first students. And we also included first girls and all girls teams because that's relevant to our team. So. Students who attend four-year colleges, and students with the intent of majoring in engineering.
First has such impact on students. I mean, it's remarkable, and I'm sure that's why you've all joined teams and mentor teams. And we were asked this summer, well, you know, they had heard of FIRST, but they didn't know that, for example, FIRST has almost 100% high school graduation rate. That's a simple statistic, but that says a lot about the caliber of mentors and what you're doing with your students. And people will give you money because what you're doing does make a difference in young people's lives. And so these three statistics that we looked at, for example, here, nationally 15% of young men go into science and engineering. 50% of the first male students do. That's like 3 times as much. That's people will give you money. 3 times more of your students will go in. And then with the women, which was particularly of interest to us, 2.6% versus almost 33%. That's 13 times more impact on your female students. So we didn't want to belabor you with like statistics to death because everybody's getting that glazed over look on their face. Candy time.
Candy time.
But these are in your packet. So take this information, send it to people, tell your story, tell the first story, and then tell them why they need to give you $5,000. Why not? It'll work.
Alright. So the third step in this process is getting the pledge. And so this includes 4 of the 12 steps. That's following up with a phone call, writing a fundraising proposal, requesting a meeting, and getting a pledge from your donor. So first off is the follow-up phone call, and this should happen 7 to 10 days after you send the letter of inquiry. So with this call, you will get a yes or no answer on whether they're interested and whether they want to fund you. So hopefully it will be a yes, and most of the time they will ask you to write a formal fundraising proposal. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are just some of the things that are included in a proposal. The letter of inquiry elements plus all this stuff. And depending on the size of your request or the company, they may ask you to provide extra information. And also, there may be a request for a presentation. So out of the tons of proposals that we've written, we've only gotten one request for a meeting. So just keep that in mind, but you should be prepared to present your ideas and why your team deserves the money. You should always be prepared to present. And lastly, and hopefully, you will get your pledge from your donor. Yay! And that leads us into the fourth step. So this is maintaining donor relations. And these are the four last steps. They're not as involved as the other ones, but they are still equally as important. So this is sending a thank you letter, keeping a database, maintaining donor happiness, and getting and cashing your check.
And that last step can be an unbelievably long process, believe it or not. So someone's got to follow the money from your team.
All right, so obviously just send a thank you letter, thank them for their support and their donations, and tell them what their money is going towards and how it's made an impact on your team.
And this, we gave you a copy of the super thank you. We put pictures and to anyone that would listen, just to keep the flow. Keep going, sorry.
All right, so another thing that we like to do is keep a database of all our sponsors. So this doesn't need to be anything really complex. We use an Excel sheet and it works just fine, and it's really easy to keep track of everything. So you may want to list your sponsors, how much money they've donated, contact information, all that stuff. And you may also want to include a spreadsheet of people who have denied your request. In case in the future you want to go back and apply for a grant or something, you may not want to waste your time if you know you don't meet their criteria. So it's just helpful to have. So something that's important for us is maintaining our donor relations. So we like to create personal relationships with our donors. And so these are just some of the ways we do this using social media.
Is there any, go ahead.
Sorry, do you get multi-year commitment from your donors, or it's like a one-time donation or grant?
We've only gotten one. And the donor asked us if we wanted X number this year, or we could split it up over 3 years, and they'd make it a little bit more.
Okay.
So I don't know why that is. We kind of thought there would be more multi-year grants, but it may be a function of the economy, a function of the times. People want to see what you've done for their money this year, and then prove that you deserve it next year. So we've had to reapply every year.
Is there any certain business that you find, and I think you're in a unique situation because you're dealing with youth who are all across, you're not just in one little county, one little area where you can go to the local, hardware store and ask Joe for the Ann's feed for money. You have to go kind of bigger. Is there a certain company that you guys hit up that you had success with?
We will ask anything that moves. Honestly, we started with NASA and JCPenney because they were, if you will, the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
That was, and Patricia could guide us, and she has regional influence. So the money's sort of all gathered up, and it's just a chance of applying with her regional application. We've tried to reach Bayer and Alcoa, but the grants that those involve, there's a timeline on those grants, and each company's timeline is a little different. U.S. Steel, for example, opens January 1, but you've got to do all this homework before you get to January 1 when their grant, let's say company XYZ, they start April 1 to March. You want to be in the beginning of that ask cycle. We've had a situation where we asked in the last quarter, and they were like, gee, if you'd come to us 6 months ago, we had plenty of money. So it's almost get your goals, see how much money you need, then start local. People locally love to give us food. We love food. That's been something that helped us all gather. In terms of money, always ask for $5,000. They may give you $1,000, but you need to put a dollar number on that page, because if you we asked and then they were like, well, how much do you need? So, and then tell them it's for robot parts. Don't tell them it's for travel or bandanas
Food or
make it for something people can understand. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you answered it.
We didn't have one.
I guess I was.
I can give one other piece of very general guidance, and that is if you look at technology companies, big, small, in Pittsburgh, they all understand because they're all trying to hire people right now and they can't find people to fill the jobs they have. So they all understand how important it is to inspire young people to go into these technical fields. And so you'll have an easier time getting them to think it's important. Now that doesn't mean they're going to open their checkbook for you necessarily, but they understand the problem firsthand because they're feeling the pain right now of not having the people.
So then part of your story is that you are filling the pipeline of trained engineers and scientists. So put that down. Why not, right?
Alright, so one other thing I wanted to point out on the slide was the cause and text. So sometimes after competition, to some of our bigger donors, or like JCPenney, for example, we would text them after our competition and let them know how the day went. So this really helped let them know what was going on with the team, and they really enjoyed it. So.
Dr. Richards and I were driving from Washington texting. Who was texting?
I was
you. That was
Mom's driving.
But we made sure to be almost sort of in everybody's faces. You know, who else did we? JCPenney, there were a couple of them. But we would text them on the way home just to let them share the excitement that, wow,
Updates on
it was so much
Facebook
fun.
and Tumblr and
Yeah.
email and all sorts of stuff. We do
Yeah,
have
we
Twitter.
have a Twitter.
No, all sorts of stuff. Follow us on Twitter, please.
Alright, so the last most important step is getting and cashing your check, and this is sort of the step that just makes the entire process worth it once you do actually get that money. So, does anybody have any other questions?
Now, I have a question for you. If all of us would go to FIRST and type in .org, how would we find your letters and your PowerPoint? In other words, it should be on there, is that what you're
I
telling me?
think Trevor said he was going to put it on the Steel City Robotics website. Do you know, George?
I don't know the details, but yeah, I think last year's slides from this workshop were on the Steel City Robotics
That was
Okay.
the intent.
workshop.
And then I've included my business card down there. Please
Okay.
feel free to take that and
We can email you and
Sure.
ask you for that.
Absolutely. We're all here to help. We had loads of fun doing this, and last year I think we had 2 people on the fundraising team. And now everybody wants to come because it's an opportunity to have some fun.
Do you have your own website or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Girls of Steel Robotics at blogspot.com.
Every
At what?
first team sets up a website.
Blogspot.com.
Working on a real website.
Yeah.
Don't be
More
so
than
much
my
in the
team.
process.
You might want to tell them about how we set up on Carnegie Mellon for donations.
Oh, so another thing we did this year was through Carnegie Mellon, we set up a link through which you can donate. So this is nice for us if we have family that lives far away, or grandparents who want to just donate maybe $10 to the team. This is kind of a nice way of getting maybe smaller amounts of money, but anything helps. So I mean, if you're
And don't we have a link on our website that you
yeah,
can?
so there's a link on our website.
So if you go to your website, then it would have that link too, set up.
Sure. And then we wanted to share with you something fun that was done by one of our students who's in the room today that we did for NASA. And we thought it was kind of risky and kind of silly, and it's very long, so you don't have to sit through all of it. We wanted to use this as a segue to let you all kind of ask questions or leave the room. I think we're through our time. Hopefully the sound works.
So NASA, you also applied for money from NASA then?
We will apply for money from anyone.
Yeah, but did you get money from NASA?
We did last year. All working teams have a really good shot with NASA. Food. There's the food.
First thing that shows on the screen.
The name of the song is One Girl Revolution.
So this was made at the beginning of last year, so it was like 31 girls. That's a lot different from this year.
You have 66, right?
62 girls, but 23 high schools.
placing
We
in the
won-
competition?
We won 2 Rookie All-Star awards
Rookie
in 2
All-Stars.
different regionals that we went to, and then we went to international championships now, and we placed 48th out of 88.
So 48 out of 88.
Within our division.
And then second highest for BC in our division.
Okay, thanks.